As you know, Valentine's Day is celebrated all over the world, a day filled with love, warmth, and affection, a day when couples express their feelings with flowers, chocolates, and romantic gestures. But what if I told you that behind this beautiful celebration lies a terrifying secret, a dark truth that has been buried for centuries, a truth that no one dares to speak about? It is said that Valentine's Day did not always symbolize love. In fact, its origins are drenched in blood, sorrow, and a curse that still lingers to this day. There is a place hidden from maps and forgotten by time, where Valentine's Day is not celebrated but feared, a place where couples do not exchange gifts. They vanish without a trace, never to be seen again. This is the story of a town that has been Erith. In the heart of England, deep within the countryside, there was once a small village called Rosewood. It was a picturesque place surrounded by forests and endless fields of wildflowers. But Rosewood held a dark secret, one that the world was never meant to know. Every year on the night of February 14th, something would happen, something that defied logic, something that turned love into horror. James and Emily were travelers searching for hidden gems of the countryside. They had read about Rosewood in an old forgotten book. It was described as a lost paradise untouched by time. They thought it would be the perfect romantic getaway. They had no idea what they were walking into. As they drove through winding roads, the GPS signal vanished, their phones, because lest the road ahead was covered in a thick knurled, a hid knotted and thick knurled. The first thing they noticed was the absence of people. The houses were old, covered in vines and decay. Windows were shattered, doors hung open, swaying in the cold breeze. The air smelled of damp earth and something else, something else, something else, something else, something else, something else, solid and bitter. Emily clutched James's arm, whispering that they should turn back, but before they could, a sound broke the silence, the chime of a bell echoing through the empty street. James looked around, searching for the source, but there was nothing, no church, no clock tower, no sign of life. And then they saw it. In the center of the village stood a massive tree, its bark blackened and twisted, its branches stretching out like skeletal arms. At its base were roses, deep red, as if soaked in something darker, and carved into the trunk were names, hundreds of names, hundreds of names, hundreds of names, etched deep into the woodenly triature. Not a normal whisper, but something ancient, something cold. It slithered into their ears, filling their minds with voices that were not their own. James grabbed her hand, pulling her away, but the moment they turned, they saw them figures standing in the distance. At first they thought they were people, but as they stepped closer, their faces were wrong, hollow eyes, mouths stretched to wide bodies that moved without sound. Emily screamed as one of them reached out, but before it could touch her, the bell rang again, this time louder. The figures stopped, their heads snapping towards the tree. Then, without warning, they began to move, disappearing into the darkness, as if the night itself had swallowed them whole. The village was alive with something unnatural, something that did not belong in this world. James and Emily ran towards their car, but the path they had come from was gone, replaced by rows of graves, each one freshly dug, each with a name carved into a wooden marker. And at the very end of the row were two new graves, untouched, undisturbed, but marked with their names. James's breath came in raged gasps, his mind refusing to accept what he was seeing. Emily grabbed his hand, urging him to murdering. Then the whispers returned louder, now chanting in an unknown language. The wind howled through the village, carrying the scent of roses and decay. The tree in the center of the village began to tremble, its branches twisting, reaching the sky, as if calling to something above. The air grew heavy, suffocating. James felt his vision blur, darkness creeping at the edges of his sight. Emily's grip tightened, her eyes. When James woke, he was outside of the village, lying on the cold, wet ground. The sun was rising, its golden light piercing through the mist. He turned to Emily, shaking her awake. Her eyes were wide, her face pale, as if she had seen something far worse than he could ever imagine. Without a word, they ran until their lungs burned, until their lugs gave out, and only when they reached a familiar road did they stop. They never spoke of Rosewood again, but the nightmares never left them. Every year on February 14th, they would hear it in their dreams, the chime of a bell, the whispers of the lost, and the feeling of something still watching them, waiting for them, calling them back, because no one truly leaves Rosewood, and love was never meant to be celebrated there. Like and subscribe to Lost Legends of Darkness for more terrifying stories.